Well, greetings. Good afternoon. It is Thursday, August 19th, 2021. This is New Thought Media Network. I'm Ken Ludwig, and you're watching the Vibrant Living Hour. Hope you're having a fabulous day wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Hope this day finds you safe, healthy, and happy, and just living your best life wherever you are, whatever you're doing, that you're just enjoying everything, that you are living in abundance of joy, love, and enthusiasm in every moment of every single day. So I'm it's an interesting day here today. It's the day after my beloved Lisa's birthday, which we celebrated yesterday as she's walking by me down here in my studio. And we're under a tornado watch. Ooh. Warning, my wife just corrected me. A tornado warning, which I think is a little bit more imminent than a watch, but the imminent than a watch, not imminent. My God, imminent than a watch. And I just hope we all land in Oz together. And I'm a little verklempt here, a little concerned. It appears to me that my screen is a bit fuzzy, and I'm not sure why that is. It doesn't look fuzzy in my little thumbnail, but it looks fuzzy on the screen. I hope it's not fuzzy to you. I thought I cleaned my camera lens earlier, and I adjusted my lighting. And let's try this just for grins. Let's just go down one in the lighting, and that seems to change it dramatically, which is a good thing, I guess. So I wanted to start off a little differently today. You know, we've talked in the past about affirmations, and you know that I do my daily spiritual practice, my DSP, every single day, and part of my DSP is my prayer work and my affirmations. And my affirmations are some that I have written in this little book here that I keep. It's basically just for affirmations at this point. I have 1,000 journals with 10 pages in them, and I don't know what I plan to do with any of them, but this one wound up being about, I don't know, 6 or 8 pages of affirmations. And then I have 6 pages of printed out affirmations and thoughts that I read every single day. And these are full 8.5 by 11s. And I have one here that I believe was sent to me by my prayer partner. It came from the Unity magazine, I think, the Daily Word. And I just wanted to read this because it just kind of resonates with me for my life in general. And one of the things that I am kind of focused on with my beloved Lisa is for us to just be aware of how prosperous and abundant we are, what a prosperous and abundant world we live in. And so here's this prayer, and I hope you like this. Today, I focus on everything in my life that makes me prosperous. So much more than material security, prosperity is the peace that comes from the knowledge that God is my source. When I keep this truth uppermost in my mind, my awareness of my prosperity grows. My relationships with family and friends show me I am rich in love. My talents and my interests lead me to abundant opportunities to learn and to grow. And the divine ideas I claim in my prayer time give me the most precious awareness of prosperity, the knowledge that I create my world through the power of my thoughts. With a grateful heart, I celebrate every manifestation of prosperity in my mind, in my heart, and in my world. So I thought I'd open with that today, because what we talked about with affirmations was the idea that by repeating affirmations rewires your brain. And sometimes I say the same affirmations for months or for years at a time, and maybe don't necessarily feel that I'm manifesting what that is that I have been affirming. But the flip side of that coin is, to me, that what you really do is, as I said, rewire your brain, and you start to think differently, even if you don't realize it. Even if you're not aware that you are, you start to do that. So I am really clear that that is one of many pieces around abundance and prosperity and appreciating the abundance of the overarching creative intelligence and all that is around us, nature, and all of the things that make us be aware of prosperity. I have, without question, started to become more aware of those, and I'm clear that has to do with very much rewiring my brain, rewiring my thinking through the use of affirmations in my prayer work. So I thought I would open with that today because I thought it was very cool to just have that idea to recognize that my perceptions are different because I'm literally, you can't dip your toe in the same river twice. And every single day that I repeat those affirmations, I'm somebody new and different, and hopefully they continue to make me somebody new and different every single day. That's that piece. There's a lot of I don't know if I ever talked about this before on the show, but I'm a member of the Wheat Ridge, Colorado Optimist Club. And an Optimist Club is really about children. It's about helping kids in any way that we possibly can, whether it's scholastically or in their home lives or in their abundance. Whatever we can do to help kids, that's what we do. We fund several scholarships. We do all kinds of support works for families and for children. And the other day, we have an invocation every single Wednesday morning when we start our meeting, and that was yesterday morning. And the older gentleman who does the invocation does a very beautiful invocation, maybe a little too religious for me, but it's he brings in the divine in his way, and I'm appreciative of that. And one of the things he mentioned was that through all the good that we experience in our lives, there are lots and lots and lots of people suffering in the world. Lots. And I just thought it would be a good way to draw our collective consciousness into a mindset of maybe lifting up those who are less fortunate than we are, those who are experiencing hardships that maybe in a lot of instances we can only imagine. In fact, we can imagine and not even come close to actually fathoming what the reality is for some of these people. But there's, first and foremost, the pandemic is ravaging other countries. It's raging across the planet. There are, I think it's like 85% of the population of the planet has not even been vaccinated yet. That's enormous. No matter what we do in this country, whether and with people who are fighting vaccinations and diving into anti-science and fear and finger pointing and blaming and using as their excuses for not being vaccinated the ramblings of random chiropractors who once took a course in immunology, or absolutely disgraced scientists who did failed experiments in the past, but then created a movie with some conspiracy theorist producer who pretends to be an interviewer, pretends to be a journalist, but really is one of these kind of out there. This guy, I'm not going to mention his name because I won't dignify it, but he every conspiracy theory that comes down the pike, he jumps on and tries to make money at it. That's, the USA, profit at all costs. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. While we're having this argument about whether or not to be vaccinated in this country, there are people all over the world who do not have access to being vaccinated. And those countries are being ravaged. And I think it's imperative, it's incumbent upon us as people of faith, if you are, as a metaphysician, if you are, as people who delve in the realm of lifting consciousness, if you are, it is time for us to do those things, to do what it is that we do. I do it in my prayer work every single morning. I lift up to a higher mind all those who are less fortunate than me, which is, quite honestly, the vast majority of the planet. Regardless of my problems, my issues, my bills, whatever it is that's going on in my world, I've got a roof over my head. I have food in the refrigerator. I have an income. I have this that I can do, compared to a billion people who live on less than $2 a day. Or is it 2 billion people who live on less than $2 a day? People who live in mud huts, people who live in just inconceivable poverty, or people like the people of Haiti, who are poor to begin with. The poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, I believe, is what Haiti is. And they have been ravaged by a couple of earthquakes, a couple of major storms. They've got rain, they've got mudslides, they've got water in their houses up to their knees. They have abject poverty to begin with, and they are suffering through this latest debacle to befall the Haitian people. It sometimes feels like Haiti is just kind of a magnet for some of those catastrophes, and I feel for those people. But my point is, for us, those of us, again, people of faith, people who deal in the realm of consciousness, people who are metaphysicians, people who just simply pray, people who believe that we can lift one another to a higher mind. I just simply ask you to include the people of Haiti in the thought process, as I do every morning in my prayer work. But then we also come to the next real hotspot, if you will, and that would be the people of Afghanistan. And all, I don't pretend to understand all of what has gone on there. I know that we went there under false pretenses. We've been there. The Russians before us were there for 20 years and failed miserably at what they were trying to do. We go in then for another 20 years, and we obviously have not been successful at whatever the hell it was we were trying to do. But in the meantime, in our exit, there are millions of Afghanis who are suffering and will continue to suffer. And we need to lift all of that into a higher mind, into a higher consciousness. Whatever we can do to do that. By the way, I can see there are people watching the show. I have this little thing that tells me there are people watching. I would love to get your comments, even if you just said hi, so I can acknowledge that you're there. It's great to know that you're with me, because it's that always makes me feel. It always makes me feel like I'm not alone. And Jamie Black, how are you? Wow, my sister just came home from Afghanistan. A soldier, I assume. Your sister is, and I'm glad she's home. I'm glad she's home. That's there are, as of yesterday was the last time I really heard anything, was there were still 15,000 Americans in Afghanistan looking to get out of there, let alone tens of thousands of people who worked with us, helped us, translated for us, did all kinds of clerical work and all kinds of other things. There's a reason to get those people out of there, just to make sure that they are not some of the ones who suffer even further. Wow. And Jamie says here that her sister was, and I'm assuming, Jamie, it's Jayme. Can I assume that you are a lady? It seems like a lady spelling for Jamie, but I can't be 100% sure. It's one of those names you can spell 1,000 different ways. Her sister was a nurse. I'm assuming her sister still is a nurse, but she was a nurse over there. And I hope, I'm glad she's home safe and sound. And it's just a good thing. It's just a blessing to get out of there. And it's, again, the politics of it are very complex, and there's lots of blame to go around, going all the way back 4 presidents when it started. There's lots of blame to go around. And I think my personal opinion is, there was never, ever, ever going to be a good time to withdraw from Afghanistan, ever. And now's as good a time as any. But the flip side of that coin is, I think we probably could have done some good in the world by keeping the small force that we had. It was only 2,500 soldiers there to begin with. Not to begin with, but at the end here. We actually have more troops there now trying to help with evacuation. Twice as many troops now helping with the evacuation as we had troops there at the end of our commitment and leaving. But with our air support and our troops there, we actually helped to keep the Afghani state functional, keep the government in place, and keep their army as such as it was. I mean, their army was just kind of, the more I hear, the more pathetic it was, but to keep them engaged, because they felt the comfort and the support of the full power of the United States, and that's gone. So I think that, there's, again, I don't pretend to know the politics. I don't pretend to have the answers, but I can see for myself 2 sides of the same coin. But anyway, the most important piece is to lift the Afghani people to a higher mind, to a higher consciousness, to raise them up to freedom, to whatever you can lift them up to, whatever is in your heart, to make them safe, and in particular the people who deserve to be airlifted out of there, to make sure that we get as many of them out as we possibly can. So there you go. That's that piece. That's my politics piece for the day. I don't do a lot of politics on here, although people who know me in the world outside of New Thought Media certainly know that I am a a political person. I care. And I can be quite vocal, and and I make no bones about the fact that I'm a screaming progressive. I am proud to be a liberal. And if you look up the meaning of the word liberal, you just look up the meaning of the word, and you'll find out why I'm proud to be a liberal. By the way, I want you to know, I just noticed this thing on camera here. I was hoping this wouldn't show, but if you see this little thing here, I just want you to know that this is a legacy from my dear departed mother. My mother was in her 80s and still getting pimples, and I got a pimple on my lip. This is not a cold sore. It's like kind of in a cold sore place. It's a little itty bitty pimple that it's there, just so you know. I don't know why I told you that. So I have a little thing here. There's some things. I used to get a magazine called The Week, and I loved The Week magazine. It gave you a broad perspective of what was going on in the world. And I hope I can read this because the print is kind of small, and I have, other than my ring light here, I have my studio is fairly dark. But I wanted to give you some health things that I have that I've come across. First of all, this is how do you say it? This is something we've talked about vaguely. Okay, we've talked about the idea that if you eliminate the insects from this planet in 5 years, there'll be no life on this planet. If you eliminate people from this planet in 5 years, the rest of the creatures on the planet would be enjoying the Garden of Eden. So that's an interesting piece of the puzzle. But there's just a quick thing, and I didn't really read this whole thing. Insects, spiders, and other arthropods are disappearing from Puerto Rico. A new study has found the latest example of a worldwide trend with potentially devastating consequences. Worldwide, the population of insect species on the planet is declining. That's not good. And it's, and I believe that you can pretty much trace all of that to humans. It's a lot of chemicals, it's pollution, it's just creating more and more human environment where there once upon a time was nature's environment. Those are all contributing factors. So it's just an interesting thought. I have long ago, I used to kill everything that walked past me. If there was a bug on the sidewalk, I stepped on it. I don't kill anything anymore. Well, that's not true. Mosquitoes, I draw a line. Flies on my food, I draw a line. Those are fair game. Flies in the house, try open the door. They get like 2 chances to leave. If not, the fly swatter comes out. But for the most part, I help spiders out of the house. We do everything we can to be in harmony with nature, with the natural order of things. And I just thought it's interesting that we really know the importance of. Jamie says she draws the line on mosquitoes too. Thank you for agreeing with that one, Jamie. It's an imperative thing that we just pay attention. Every other creature on this planet, for the most part, has just as much right to exist as we do. Or they wouldn't be here. The overarching creative intelligence of the universe, that overarching creative intelligence put you here, put me here, but also put the mosquitoes, surprising, and also put alligators and rattlesnakes and all of these other creatures. They all have a purpose in nature. And we just need to pay attention, I think, and do what we can to be in harmony with Mother Nature, as opposed to being taking that tack of we have dominion and we are in control, and that's a whole bunch of poppycock right there. They also always had this health scare of the week thing in here every week, and it was it was always very interesting. Sometimes it was great, sometimes it was almost tongue in cheek. But this one is about exercise and the dangers of the sedentary lifestyle. And we all know that exercise is good for us, but it also contributes to a dramatic decrease in the possibilities of diabetes, heart disease, cancer, dementia. There are so many things that you benefit, so many parts of your body and so many different functions of your body that benefit from exercise. And in particular, not my favorite kind of exercise, but if you are aerobically sound, your chances of becoming sick are dramatically decreased. Once again, if you're watching the show, I so appreciate you, but I love it if you just make a comment, even if the comment is just hi, so I know you're out there, so I can maybe even acknowledge you if you're interested. And the other one, that the only other piece of, and this piece of paper, this is part of the Week magazine from, I can't even read it. Looks like November 2018. So it's just, I mean, but I randomly came across this afternoon and stuff that I have saved around health and wellness. And this one really flabbergasted me that that each and every one of us, on average, consumes about, where's that number here? About 2,000 pieces of microplastic per year in our salt. And the worst salt of all is sea salt, because obviously the ocean is tremendously polluted with plastic, and sea salt has the most plastic particles in it. Now, microparticles are basically they're the smallest pieces of plastic you're going to find, because every piece of plastic that was ever made is still with us. It never totally disappears. It gets down to molecules, but it's still there. Micro pieces are anything that's less than, what is it, 5 millimeters or 3 millimeters, something like that. A very, 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 very tiny piece of plastic are the microplastics. So just be aware of that. Just be aware of plastics in general. Whatever you can recycle. Whatever you can avoid buying. My beloved Lisa and I try to avoid plastics at all costs. In fact, we each, just a little thing, couple little things. This little pimple I pointed out to you, one of the origins of this, I believe, was shaving. And I shave with an old-fashioned double-edged blue blade that my father shaved with. And the reason I shave with that is I always used, like, the plastic, the Gillettes and the Bics, and with 3 blades, 5 blades, whatever they have in them. I always use those. But then one day, Lisa and I read that those are almost entirely unrecyclable, because there are multiple different kinds of plastic with the steel blades. And I almost instantaneously stopped using them. So the only thing I'm using is a steel blade. Once a week, I change that in my razor, but it's a double edge. But they're very sharp, and it's a whole different thing around shaving. You have to pay a little bit more attention than you do with the plastic razor blades, plastic razors. And so that was an origin of this. But we stopped using that plastic because of that. We stopped buying plastic water bottles, just because of the plastic. I mean, the plastic water bottles are ubiquitous, and they're polluting everything. When we go on a picnic, or if we even go to some of the like restaurants like Mod Market or those kinds of places where you get your food delivered to you on a tray, we don't take any silverware from them, especially if it's plastics, because we carry, each of us has a set of bamboo silverware. They're not silverware, obviously, they're bamboo tableware that we carry with us, so that we can use them wherever we go to eat, and then we clean them ourselves. Nothing to recycle. And wow, Jamie, your husband uses the same ones. Those are like, I don't know how old you are, but I mean, those go all the way back to my father in the, well, I was born in 1950. So I saw my father shave with those my whole life till I left New York in 1975. I mean, my father was still shaving with those. He never went to a more modern blade. He always shaved with those. And he actually always had the little cup with the soap on it and the brush, which I did for years. I stopped doing that a long time ago. I just buy shaving cream. I mean, I probably shouldn't. Aerosol cans are not exactly the world's most recyclable entity either. But that's, you do the best you can with what you can do. So there's some things that we do. And we also recycle everything we can that's recyclable: plastics, aluminum cans, tin cans, steel cans, all kinds of paper and cardboard products. We absolutely recycle those. We live in a place, we live in this townhouse complex that doesn't have recyclable trash removal. So I literally take one of the big garbage cans, of whatever they are, 35-gallon or whatever garbage cans. I take one of those and a stack of broken up cardboard boxes. I take that to the recycler every 2 weeks and dump it off. That's, again, do what you can do. Jamie says she melts the soap into a stainless steel container. I'm guessing that's for her husband. That's what I always did. I didn't buy the soap that I used for shaving. I just used scraps of soap from my shower. I just threw them in a coffee cup, actually, that became my shaving mug. God, that's a long time ago. Seems like on a planet far, far away. Thank you, Jamie. I love your contribution. It's so good to have you here. Thank you. So last week we took a week off, but before that, the 2 weeks previous, we were talking about one of my favorite books in the world, The Four Agreements. And we talked about the first two agreements. 1 week we talked about the first agreement, be impeccable with your word. And then the next week we talked about the second ingredient. Second ingredient. That's funny. Jamie just put up, I make soap. And when she put that up, I went right to ingredients. The second agreement, it's not an ingredient. The second agreement is don't take anything personally. The third agreement is don't make assumptions. And I wanted, I didn't do this with the first two agreements, but I'm going to do this with the third agreement because I think the first two paragraphs of this is kind of important. And there are so many different facets to don't make assumptions. And I think, well, we'll talk a little bit about those. Again, if you're joining me just now on the show, just pop a hi in the comments. It'd be great to hear from you and to know you're out there. Jamie, I'd love to know what kind of soap you make. And is that what your husband uses for shaving? Because that's very interesting. So here we go. This is the beginning of the fourth chapter of the Four Agreements, and it is the third agreement, and it's called Don't Make Assumptions. The third agreement is don't make assumptions. We have the tendency to make assumptions about everything. The problem with making assumptions is that we believe they are the truth. We could swear they are real. We make assumptions about what others are doing or thinking and take it personally. Then we blame them and react by sending emotional poison with our word. That is why whenever we make assumptions, we're asking for problems. We make an assumption, we misunderstand, we take it personally, and we end up creating a whole big drama for nothing. All the sadness and drama you have lived in your life was rooted in making assumptions and taking things personally. Take a moment to consider the truth of this statement. The whole war of control between humans is about making assumptions and taking things personally. Our whole dream of hell is based on that. Now, his idea of a dream of hell is a little different from the traditional idea of hell as a place. And we're not going to talk about that because that's just poppycock. But excuse me. We make assumptions about everything. And then we tend to believe them. And we believe them because as we make up the story, excuse me, let's have a little sip of water here. Thank you. We make assumptions about everything. They become real. They become part of our belief system. And what happens is people do things, people say things, people don't explain themselves to our particular understanding, not necessarily our liking, to our understanding. And then we create a story. That's assumptions. We create a story. The story then is something that we kind of tend to put on that reel that Don Miguel Ruiz refers to as in the Toltec tradition. It is the mitote. The mitote is the gazillion voices in your head saying a bunch of stuff, real, imagined, and unnecessary or truthful, but they're all going at once. We put these assumptions, these stories in our head, and the mitote then jumps on them and creates this alternate reality, these problems, this drama. And as that happens, of course, if you're aware of how the brain works around these things, it doesn't really matter if you are someone who has experienced these things, whatever these things are, you've experienced this, or you've imagined this, your brain doesn't necessarily know the difference. So the imaginings become reality. Now, just, some examples of that have been, there's been a million experiments. The two experiments that always stick in my head are the experiment with basketball. All right. It says we're live and it says we're back. So my apologies. That was a lightning strike. And it blew out our internet for a short period of time there. So anyway, Jamie, I don't know if you're still there. If you're still with me, doesn't look like you are, Jamie. If you're still out there, just yeah, your question was about the book. The book is The Four Agreements, and we're talking about the third agreement. And the third agreement is don't make assumptions. And we were talking about the idea that we make assumptions, and eventually we spin them around in our head enough that our brain makes them real. Our brain makes them our reality. And so what we're going to do here is we're being blasted here with thunder and lightning. And so what I'm going to do is end the show early. And I think maybe what we'll just do is we'll kind of repeat this entire show next week. Next week, by the way, I want you to know this. Next week, my special guest is going to be Dr. Sue Morter, who wrote this amazing book, The Energy Codes. This is a fabulous read. It's really about the power to heal ourselves and discovering how, by using these energy codes that Dr. Sue lays out in a 7-step system to awaken your spirit. So please join me next week. We'll have Dr. Sue on. We'll have a great discussion with her. She'll be my first guest on the show. We haven't had any guests before. I think I will just continue, and I won't cut it off. We'll just continue, and we'll see where we go from here. See how it works. The thunder at the moment has stopped outside. It's a little daunting, especially when you're in the middle of a show and one bolt of lightning, one clap of thunder, and next thing you know, you have no internet and the show goes dead. So, your brain doesn't know the difference between what is your actual experience and what you have imagined. I was going to talk about the examples that we use to demonstrate that. And the one was basketball and basketball free throws. And they had three groups of kids, and one of them did nothing. And one of them shot free throws for, I believe, pick a number, doesn't matter, for an hour a day, shot free throws. And the third group, they imagined shooting free throws for an hour a day. And the results were, at the end, obviously the group that did nothing had no change in their ability to shoot free throws. The group that shot free throws every day and the group that imagined or visioned shooting free throws every day came away with almost identical increases in their ability to actually physically shoot free throws. So that's one example. The other example is playing the piano, same exact kind of thing. One group did nothing. One group practiced the piano for a certain amount of time every day. Another group just envisioned practicing the same thing on the piano for the exact same amount of time. And at the end of everything, of course, the group that did nothing had no improvement in their ability to play the piano. But the group who both played the piano and the group who visioned playing the piano, they had almost identical increases in their ability to play the particular thing that they were playing. So that's just how that idea of making assumptions and creating a story becomes our reality. It becomes what we believe and what we understand. And it happens in so many different realms. We truly make the mistake of believing that everyone views the world the same as we do. We, each and every one of us, see the exact same thing differently. If you go to the movies and you come out of a movie, one of the great thrills of watching a great movie, a great maybe a thriller or something that really plays with your thought, makes you think, makes you analyze what's going on in the movie or in your world or whatever. One of the great joys is then having a discussion about it, and see how incredibly different you and the people you watch the movie with saw the movie. I always have a great example. Many, many, many years ago, there was a movie called Powder. Like gunpowder, like baby powder. It was about a young man who was just different, very, 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 very different. And won't go into how different Powder was. But in the end of the movie, Powder is running across a field in a huge lightning storm, and the lightning strikes him, but stays with him as he runs, and he dissipates into the lightning. And one of the people I was watching the movie with said she didn't understand why he had to commit suicide at the end. That was absolutely 100% not what he did. But that's how she interpreted the movie. Now, there's many different metaphysical ways to interpret the movie. None of them are he committed suicide. But so I'm not going to analyze the movie for you. If you haven't seen it, go see it. Powder, Powder. It's a great, great, great movie. Stars Mary Steenburgen, Lance Henriksen, and the young fellow whose name I don't know, who was the star. Lance Henriksen is always one of my all-time favorites. He's just a great action star. He was the android in the original Alien movie. He's one of my all-time favorites. But anyway, what do you care who my favorite actors are? But those are examples, if you will, of how we view the world. We see the same things and we see them differently, or we do the same things and how we actually do them physically or mentally is how we unfold them as our reality. Same thing with stories. I don't know. There's people back on here. Jamie, if you're one of them, just tell me you're back, and I will tell you what the name of the book was. The idea is that we need to avoid making assumptions. Obviously, we need to avoid creating stories. And one of the ways, or the best way to do that, is to ask questions. Ask questions and start what I could only refer to as courageous conversations. Unfortunately, we're afraid to ask questions. We're afraid that we're going to look stupid, or we're going to sound silly, or people aren't going to understand why we're asking the questions, or they're going to think we don't understand the situation, so we have to ask a question about it. If you ask questions, there are no assumptions. If you ask courageous questions, have courageous conversations, there are no assumptions. There's no reason to assume anything because you're having a legitimate conversation. And you are eliminating, by asking questions and getting answers, you're eliminating the things around which we create assumptions and stories. Think about it in your own relationship. If you have a relationship with a significant other or a spouse, or even your children or parents, or just relationships in general. We so often look at people that know us really well and we think to ourselves, my wife knows me so well, she should automatically know what I want. She should know how I feel. She should understand what I'm going through. That's not only not true, it's not fair. That's an assumption. That's a story. And it's a story that leads to one thing and one thing only: disagreement, distrust, and anger and fear and resentment. It's so important to have clear communications in our relationships, all of our relationships. And it all starts with asking questions. Anything I don't totally get, I don't grok it, then I need to ask a question. And I need to not be afraid to ask a question. And I need to cultivate relationships where it's not a bad thing to ask questions, where we can actually have a thought in mind that we need to ask about and not have it be a negative thing, not have it be a bad thing. Excuse me. There's another piece, or some more pieces of this. We always, when we look at things like the media, this is a big deal for me these days. This is a really, really, really big deal for me. We see what we want to see and we hear what we want to hear. Or we see what we are conditioned to see and how we've conditioned ourselves to see it, and hear what we've conditioned ourselves to hear. We don't see or hear things as they are. We hear or see things as we are. And all of that is about the assumptions we've made, or as Don Miguel says in the book, about our personal, individual domestication, how we have come to view the world. That's how we see the media. And it's very, very chic these days, or chic, or whatever the proper word is, to blame the media for everything. Facebook is just rife with people talking. The media is stoking fear. The media is creating these high-walled camp where we're arguing with each other and hating each other because that's what the media wants us to do. And that's just all poppycock. That's all baloney. You want to find out where the fear is coming from? You want to eliminate the fear in some ways? Just get off Facebook. Because it's not the media that's creating fear. It's our preconceived notions. It is our preferences that we express in social media, where social media then continues to feed us our preferences. We get confirmation bias. Everything that we get, everything that comes into us is designed to confirm who we are and how we feel. Because if we see those kinds of things, we stay on social media longer and they can charge more money for advertising. Period. That's all it is. But that's where the fear is stoked. That's where the fear is almost created. It's not in the media. The media has somehow become a scapegoat. We need a free and what's the other word? A free and liberal media in order to have a resource to investigate what's going on around us and tell us what's going on. Unfortunately, what has happened in our media is it has been infested with opinion. Now, opinion is not the news, and the opinions can stoke fear and can stoke animosity, resentment, and hatred. And that's exactly what they're doing. And they're doing it particularly in a specific area of the media. And, you know, if you're watching Fox News or One American News or whatever the other crazy thing is, the One American News and Newsmax, I guess it's called. If you're watching those, you're getting a little bit of news and a whole bunch of BS. And that's going to be the story that you create around that becomes your beliefs. And then that translates onto the social media, and the social media then feeds you back more of that. So in the sense that people want to blame the media, if you want to blame the opinionators on the media, the bloviators in the media, blame them, but don't blame the media. Don't blame legitimate journalists, legitimate reporters. They're out there doing a job that, quite honestly, you need and I need, and our way of existence in this country doesn't exist without them. Just flat out doesn't exist without them. We need them. We need them to be part of our lives. Go back to the idea we need to ask questions. We need to ask questions all the time. We need to ask questions, literally ask questions about everything. But don't make assumptions around it. If you see something around the science that's going on around the pandemic, around vaccines, if you see something that you feel needs to be questioned, question it. Question it. But don't make assumptions about it, because your assumptions will become a belief system that may or may not be true or be based in fact or have any validity whatsoever. So ask questions. The last thing I'll talk about today will be about the science. We've made assumptions around science that are beyond silly, beyond stupid. Science has been the science that's going on right now, in particular around the virus and the pandemic. That science has been pretty transparent. And the good news is it's been transparent. The bad news is it's been transparent, because what happens then is people hear certain things that the science has derived and told us, and then people become assumers. They assume that this is the way it is. This science, we live in a time, Bruce Lipton calls this scientific materialism, where science is our truth provider. Not necessarily 100% the truth or fact, but it's the time in history we live in, and science tells us something, we assume it's correct, and therefore when science tells us something else, now we're confused. Now we're like, well, were you lying to me? Didn't you know? Did you make it up? Were you assuming? No. Science is a thought process of evolution. Science is not the truth. Science is the seeking of the truth. And science has a methodology to it. It's called the scientific method. And guess what? Every single one of us learned this in high school or junior high school even, but we learned it. And the scientific method is this. You make an observation, and then you ask a question. When you ask the question, then you make a hypothesis about the answer to the question. Then you conduct an experiment around your hypothesis, and then you draw conclusions. And finally, you report. And once you report, you either make a new set of hypotheses or you make new predictions. But it's always the same thing. So as science receives more data, it changes the nature of the observation. It then changes the question and it creates a new hypothesis. So that science is evolving. And as the science around this disease and around this pandemic and around vaccines and all these other things, as that science evolves, we need to be intelligent enough to recognize that it is telling us the latest developments via that scientific method. It's important, folks. It's important. Do what you will around the whole ideas of mandates, of masking, of vaccines, of all those things. Do what you will. But if you're doing it outside of accepting the science, you're mistaken. If anything is being questioned, if the science is being questioned by people other than the scientists, and it's just assumptions that people are making up, you're being duped. I apologize today for the that's just go off on a whole different subject. That's all I got for you today. That's it for me. So what I want to do is make sure that you I apologize first of all for the internet blip there. I'm glad our internet came back up. It only went out for a few minutes, but one lightning strike and boom, internet's out for 5 minutes. But we came back, and I hope you got to listen to the last half of the show. Or I hope maybe you'll watch it in the archives. I want you to know a few things about us first and foremost. If you want to reach me, you can find me on my Facebook page, which is just Ken Ludwig, or you can find me on Vibrant Aging, which is my branded page with my beloved Lisa. It goes hand in hand with this show, Vibrant Living and Vibrant Aging. They are, again, two sides of the same coin. If you want to email me, please email me at teamrocketnow@gmail.com. That's rocket like rocket baby, not rocket ship. Just rocketnow@gmail.com. Teamrocketnow@gmail.com. The other thing I really want you to know is that New Thought Media Network, we are a nonprofit organization, and we absolutely live and breathe by virtue of your generosity and your donations. Go to newthoughtmedia.org. I'm sorry, that's ntmedia.org. Click on the donate button, and we will be thrilled to get whatever your little heart desires to give us. That would make us very, very, very happy. So that's it, I guess, for today. Please donate, ntmedia.org. Find me at teamrocketnow@gmail.com. And next week, very, very, very important. Dr. Sue Morter, Dr. Sue Morter, my goodness, an old friend who's written this book, The Energy Codes. The Energy Codes is an extraordinary book about a 7-step system to awaken your spirit, heal your body, and live your best life. Absolutely 100% in alignment with the Vibrant Living Hour. I am so thrilled to have Sue on here. It'll be a great conversation. We haven't had an interview together in about a decade, so it'll be really a lot of fun for me, and I hope for her. In the meantime, I am, as always, immensely grateful for the incredible gift that is your time and your attention. I wish you all the love and all the blessings that the universe has to offer. And until next week, namaste.